In 1967, 32-year-old Elvis was well aware that his film career, at least artistically, was beyond saving. No longer able to hold off the inevitable, Elvis finally married Priscilla Beaulieu on May 1st, 1967. Elvis's cousin, Billy Smith.
When Elvis got married to Priscilla, no disrespect, because Priscilla was a good person, a beautiful woman, you know. But by then, Elvis didn't want marriage, you know. I mean, he really didn't. He liked being who he was.
Lamar Fife.
I don't think he wanted to marry Priscilla. You know, I think that he'd had more fun catching bowling balls with his teeth. I find that he was in a trap place, and I think he had to do what he had to do.
9 months to the day, 5:01 p.m., February 1st, 1968, Lisa Marie Presley was born. Elvis was a father. Elvis's idealized relationship with Priscilla was replaced with the grim reality of marriage and fatherhood. Actress Marianne Mobley.
Priscilla became the Madonna with child. And as much as he loved Priscilla, adored Lisa Marie, it made him hesitant, or made it difficult for him to think of Priscilla as not just the Madonna, but as Priscilla the woman.
The reality for Elvis in Hollywood was more of the same. He was handed the most inane scripts Hollywood had to offer. Mafia member Marty Lacker.
Here's the biggest recording artist in the history of the music business singing Dominic DeVoe or Old MacDonald. I mean, what does that tell you?
The studios were exploiting Elvis and making quality pictures with other artists.
And Elvis knew this. We saw Beckett at the Memphian Theater in Memphis one night, and Elvis got so mad he cut it off in the middle and he started cussing Hal Wallace. He makes my idiot movies, was the exact words, so he can make all this artistic stuff with people like Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole, and I don't get nothing good to them.
For the first time, Presley confronted his manager, Colonel Parker.
They just told him this. And they said, look, don't make any more deals for any movies because I'm not going to sign the contract.
But Elvis had 2 more pictures to do in order to finish out his contract with Hal Wallace.
He was committed to a contract. Elvis was the type of guy, if I got to do something, I'll do it. I'll do it, and that's it.
In 1969, the 34-year-old Elvis shot The Trouble with Girls. Arnold Pizer was the 12th writer assigned to the Corky script. The picture was doomed from the beginning.
I always felt that nobody wanted the picture to go because they had probably written it off.
Elvis and the gang showed up in typical fashion. Ready to work, ready to play.
The first day of the shoot, a bunch of his guys came into the set first, throwing firecrackers.
Elvis went through the motions of playing his part.
He had a couple of really good scenes with Sherry North, who was a lovely lady and a very good actress.
We were doing a scene that was quite dramatic, and in it I was having to have this breakdown. And at the end of the scene, he looked at me. He was so moved. He just looked at me like that for a while, and then he just grabbed me and took me down and gave me this huge kiss. He just didn't know how else to express it, you know. It was very, very touching and very sweet.
North remembers a troubled, introspective Elvis.
He says, you know, people just see the good times and they see you in a good car. And he says, they don't really know, do they, Sherry? They don't know what it's really like. They don't think you ever suffer. They don't think you ever feel bad.
And Elvis was, indeed, feeling bad. Memphis Mafia member Joe Esposito.
So what do? You take something to make you feel good.
That meant more and more pills. Author Pat Broski.
It was something to help him in filmmaking, to help him get up in the morning, to help him lose weight. But ultimately, I think it became something that numbed him. And I think he liked being numbed to what was going on with his film career.
It just developed, and it got worse and worse. And when you're in the position, the financial position that he was in, you buy doctors. You don't buy them, hell, you own them. And you can get what...
Elvis had him wrong, you know. But It's just that he would be so out of it, with getting so high on it, that he couldn't relate to anything. You know, and it was such a shame, because I saw him sitting there at times with his eyes closed, and I think that's when he was using the Demerol, and his eyes were closed, and he was talking, and he was very thick-tongued and everything, and just kind of putting down, that's all right, you know. And I could relate to what he was doing, because I knew how that stuff would make you do that.
I think me and just about every other guy looked at Elvis as being a very strong individual in so many ways. And to see him and this taking a hold of him, you know. And the one thing that really shouldn't, I'd rather him been stronger that way towards drugs and weaker somewhere else, because, I mean, I idolized him, you know, it's just that simple.
Their love of Elvis made it nearly impossible for the Memphis Mafia to confront him. When they did, Elvis didn't like it.
Red confronted him and talked to him about the drugs and telling Elvis, man, you're not the same. The stuff is harming you. And he talked half a night away. Elvis sat there and listened. The next day when Elvis came out for breakfast, he pulled a gun on Red. He said, don't you ever talk to me. He said, I need this stuff.
Red West was fired. If the other members of the Memphis Mafia were going to try to save Elvis, they knew what they had to do.
All you can do is sort of walk that very thin line, because if you got fired, then you couldn't help it. And if you sort of weaved your way around situations, you could help it. And I would argue and fight with him, but I had to go to a certain point, and I would have to say, but you literally had to, the part of being tied and fried is right. We were tied and fried. I mean, it was tough.
And as I say, more people, why didn't you do something about it? We all tried to do something about it. From his father to Priscilla to all the guys around him, we all talked to him about it.
So it was all prescribed medicine, but the doctors would never say no.
If his doctor, Dr. Nick, when he was using Dr. Nick, wouldn't give him something, if Dr. Nick tried to control the situation, Elvis was not adverse to finding the name and address of another doctor. See, he knew the effect he had on people. And he'd go cold to that doctor's office, knock on his door. Doctor opened the door. There stood Elvis Presley. I saw him do it 2 or 3 times. I saw him do it once in Vegas, and he cultivated this doctor so much because he gave him a mark, a Lincoln mark, to get the doctor in his pocket. The doctor wrote him whatever he wanted.
Not only was Elvis able to influence doctors, he also got a favor from President Richard Nixon. Miraculously, Elvis was admitted into the White House to meet President Nixon. Sonny West was there.
The Oval Office is like you see it in the movies, man. You walk in, and you're there, and the president's desk is right over to the right, and the flags around and everything, the windows and stuff. And there's President Nixon sitting over there. And President Nixon said, you dress kind of wild, don't you, son? He said, Mr. President, you got your show to run, and I got mine. And the president said, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
When it was time to go, Nixon handed out mementos.
He goes back over to his desk, and he brings these keychains, the little round, the little hoop things with the little balls, 14-karat gold with the presidential seal on them. He gives one to me and one to Jerry, and we thank him. And Elvis says, Mr. President, they got wives, too. Oh, okay. And he goes back over there. Elvis follows him over there. He goes in and he picks out these 2 pendants for our wives to get. He starts coming over here, and Elvis is going through his drawer. He's going through his drawer trying to find whatever he might want to have.
Elvis got his Drug Enforcement Agency badge.
He was like a boy with a new toy, man, his favorite toy of all time. When he got that, he was out of, he just, golly. And he would use it. I mean, he stopped the plane in Vegas one time showing that credential. And the guy said, I thought you were Elvis. He said, I am, but I'm an undercover agent, too. You know, the pilot said, what? He said, yeah, I'm an undercover agent.
Other projects were presented to Elvis, but the Colonel shot them down. Actress Ann Helen.
I remember he talked to me about a movie that Elix had, or was doing, Fugitive Kind, and he had been offered the part, and the Colonel advised him not to do it. I guess outwardly said no, and I think Elvis had regrets about that. because Marlon Brando ended up playing the part, and it would have put Elvis in a whole different direction.
Composer Jerry Lieber tried in vain to involve Elvis in a project with director Elia Kazan. Kazan had wanted to work with Elvis on several occasions, but the Colonel warned Mediocre Pictures to his credit. Just when it appeared to be over for Elvis in Hollywood, Barbra Streisand came to him with a chance to prove himself one last time. 1974, Elvis Presley was about to turn his back on Hollywood forever. Biographer Pat Broski.
There are stories of some great missed opportunities in regard to Elvis's screen career, and probably the biggest is A Star is Born.
Academy Award-winning actress Barbra Streisand was determined to remake A Star is Born with Elvis Presley in the lead. She and producer John Peters pitched the idea to Elvis in Las Vegas. Joe Esposito was there.
They told the whole script to Elvis from beginning to end. We were there for about 2 hours. She went over the whole thing. She really wanted Elvis to do it, and Elvis got excited about it. It sounded like a great story, a great idea.
Elvis come out of there, and he was very impressed. He said, man, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And he said, they want me to play the lead in A Star is Born. And boy, we were excited. We had said, you swear to God you're going to do it? And he said, yes. All right. And they stuck out their hands and shook. And I shook with him, and the other 2 or 3 guys shook hands. And this is it. This is what he needs, because we knew that he was getting burned out.
Elvis was flattered by Streisand's offer. He turned to Colonel Parker to work out a deal. Not surprisingly, Parker feared a loss of control over Elvis and shut him down.
And he said, well, I talked to the Colonel, and he don't think we should do this movie. And that was the end of it.
Elvis Presley's movie career was officially over. He returned to Graceland, a defeated man.
He would go home to Graceland, and he would just stay in his room. He was so deeply saddened, and he kept the door closed, and his dad was living there, and very upset, but he said he knew his dad cared, but he didn't know what to say to his dad, and his dad didn't know what to say to him. So the expression of concern that his dad could do is he'd put food on a tray, and he'd bring it up, and he'd leave it outside the door. And he said that would go on for a very long period.
Elvis had found out how good an actor he really was. If he had been nominated for Academy Award, everyone would have sort of lost their control over Elvis, because he would have found out that he had more power than what he was being forced to do. But as long as Elvis didn't know, he was easily led by other people.
It would have been a whole different Elvis. It would have been, we wouldn't be talking about certain things that we're talking about today, because this guy was...
that got caught up in a mass of terrible, terrible things in Hollywood.
He's a phenomenon. This man will never die in our hearts, and it's wonderful because it keeps him alive for me. You know, it's not like any person in history. I mean, his birthday they have pilgrimages. His memorial they have pilgrimages. I mean, it's amazing what this man touched the hearts of so many people in this world. I mean, it's mind-boggling. I mean, he probably couldn't believe it.
Remember, he had a real beautiful tan.
King Creole. King Creole because it's the one movie that Elvis could show his acting abilities.
Of course, the music on it was terrific.
I loved Loving You 2 years ago because of Elvis.
But I moved to Memphis 12 years ago because of Elvis.
I named him after Elvis, sort of. Jesse Aaron. Yeah, I had movies and music and all the set.
She said, I'm 19. I said, you weren't even alive when Elvis was, you weren't even born, rather, when Elvis was performing. She said, that's right. But I missed them. I grew up on them.
I like them all. And I wish he had a chance to do more dramatic roles, because I think he was almost like another James Dean, or, you know, has great acting talent.